Attention all passengers. Wilford Industries wishes you a good morning. The temperature outside is minus 119 degrees Celsius. As we enter the Yukon territory of the former Canada, we remind you, for your personal safety, be prepared to brace. We are 6 years, 9 months, and 26 days from departure. At the tone, the exact time will be 0800 hours. And now, for your listening and viewing pleasure, Wilford Industries is proud to present the latest offering from darkloopsproductions, the Snowpiercers.
The Snowpiercers, a podcast in which we, the head of hospitality, the social engineer, director of intercar relations, and the lead brakeman discuss TNT's fantastic series, Snowpiercer. I'm your host, Dr. Scott Jordan, aka Zombie Scotty, cognitive psychologist, philosopher from Illinois State University. And tonight we discuss season 2, episode 3, A Great Odyssey. Fellow crew members, please say hi and tell the audience a little something about who you are. And we'll start with Stanford.
Hello, I'm Dr. Stanford Carpenter. I'm a cultural anthropologist coming to you out of Chicago, Illinois.
Excellent. Next, we'll go to Leandra.
I'm Dr. Leandra Parris. I am a professor in school psychology over in Virginia.
Fantastic. And Cianna.
I am Cianna Greaves. I am a public radio producer and podcast producer out of Chicago, Illinois.
Fantastic. So what we're going to do here is favorite character, favorite scene, favorite line. Who wants to start?
I will go first. I don't feel like I volunteered to go first recently, and I don't want anyone to steal my favorite line. I feel like someone is.
There you go.
Absolutely love the scene where Melanie is talking to Alex, and she says, when he tried to get you to kill everyone, he was trying to put that on you. That's not who you are. It's not your fault. Like, that whole speech was just glorious. Because I feel like up until that moment, we've seen Alex really kind of give Wilford back a little bit of his bite, where he's like, I don't want to ever see another tear. And she's like, you won't get one. Like, she knows the game that's being played there. And I think she really needed to hear what Melanie was saying, which is that you're being gaslit.
Yeah.
And I think we can all think of a time in our life where, like, we really could have used someone to look at us and be like, this is not your fault. This is not okay. And for her as a child to be dealing with that, and then for her to turn around and hug Melanie the way that she did, like, you got to see her be a kid who just wants her mom to help it be okay. And so that whole speech that she gave, I feel like, I don't know, it just resonated with me on so many different levels in terms of just not letting people make you take ownership for something that's not about you and isn't on you, even though they want you to think that. So I really think it speaks to, again, like the gaslighting that he's doing.
Yeah,
that's my favorite line.
My favorite line will probably come from their interaction. That scene there, you realize that this young girl's basically been abused. She's not had someone looking out for how she feels. She's just had someone taking advantage of her entire life. And I think that's the icebreaker that gets her to understand that Melanie can take her to a place in life that Wilford just doesn't care about it and never will. So.
And I was really worried when we first see her with him that she was going to idolize him. Like, here's the guy who saved my life. He's the reason that I'm alive. He came back for me, which is all legitimate. But it was nice to see her also recognize that, like, there's more to it than that. And just because he got me on this train doesn't excuse the way that he's treated me or anyone else. And I'm just interested to kind of see where they take Alex with that, because she's in a really adult, complicated, navigating some really weird, complicated situations as a kid. And even Melanie's like, do you have friends? Like, are there other children? And there's not. Like, she has no way of experiencing any of that. And so I just felt that to be like a really great moment that I kind of wish someone could look at America and say that,
Mm,
you know, like
yeah,
we all need to hear that sometimes.
right.
So yeah.
No, absolutely.
I mean, what I think is interesting about the way you describe that, Leandra, is that my take on Alex's character is that she's actually the most aware character in the story. Like she completely understands that she's being abused by Wilford. Like she gets it. And I got the sense that she got it even in the first scene that we saw her, but she also realizes that there's not another place to go, right?
Yep.
But her assessment of her mother is incredibly brutally honest, and it's not wrong. You know, I mean, her mother did make a choice.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this wasn't some accident where it's like, oh, I thought you. No, her mother made a choice to send someone else to try and get her, and that person failed, right? And I thought that was really, I think that's one of the things that's really interesting about her character is that she seems to understand not just herself and her place, but the other characters in this drama better than those other characters understand themselves.
No, I completely agree. I think that you're right. Like looking back, I do think she realizes that what's happening is like not okay. I still think that it's good for her to hear someone say that to her and say, I recognize what you're doing right now. And you shouldn't have to. And I do think that's a good point too about her having such a good, she even knows like when to switch between calling her Melanie, when to call her mom. Like she knows not to call her mom in front of Wilford. So she calls him, you know what I mean? So like, that's just such a sophisticated thing. If you're right. And it's a really great way for us as an audience to have someone who has that read on everybody.
But it's also interesting because it's what's isolating about her character, right? Like when you know all the there's nothing lonelier than being the person who knows everything.
Yep.
Because
in the land of the blind.
I wouldn't know.
No, what I meant was in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is simply alone, or the one-eyed woman is simply alone, right?
No, that's a good point.
I think her response, the way she's responded to Melanie in such a short time, piggybacking off of what you said, Stanford, is a mark of her awareness and her maturity. You know, when we did Lovecraft Country, we spoke a lot about familial trauma. And sometimes those processes, when you suffer trauma at the hands of a parent, to come to a place of understanding that, yeah, that parent, you know, had issues or did what they had to do at times, takes years and years and years. And you see when they're saying their goodbyes that there is an understanding there. Having, you know, a shared experience, you can see the sort of cooling of the anger that she showed Melanie in episode 1. And I think she's come to, and I also think it plays into the fact that she knows that her time with her mother is very limited and that it's sort of a now or never. And she has to make a choice. And for her to choose forgiveness, I think says a lot about Alex's character. And I hope it's something that we explore a little deeper in episodes to come, for sure.
Yeah, I really like your comment about being in a difficult environment when you're growing up. We live in external forces and we live in internal forces, and there's a lot of individual difference in what forces we have in us. And some people, those difficult situations actually can generate an informed internal voice. Where that comes from, you know, it's not always clear, but there are some who drown in the context and there are some who find a way not to. And when you come out of that, you do know people a bit better than perhaps someone who's not been in that space. The weird kind of ironic take-home message of that is that everybody should go through crap so they can learn how to be with people, which is not what I'm trying to say at all. But I like this idea. Some want to call it post-traumatic stress versus post-traumatic growth. But I do like this idea of having different internal forces across different people and how that plays out in terms of how they deal with difficult situations. So I'll jump in on favorite character. And my favorite character was Melanie. I thought the acting was some of the best I've seen. The depth of the anguish, the staying cool, and it all comes down to the line, stay off the brakes and keep your nerve. Lay off the brakes and keep your nerve. I mean, on the one hand, in that scene, the idea of lay off the brakes and keep your nerve made contextual sense in terms of driving the train around this high speed curve. On the other hand, that's a parent encouraging a kid to have an approach response to life, right? Yeah, go for it, and don't lose your nerve. And because anybody who does, that's what happens. The speed of the life they're living can get out of control, and the issue is to not lose your nerve. There's a conversation that opens up the episode, and that's is Brian Melanie's boyfriend's name? Brian?
It starts with a B, yeah.
Ben.
Ben.
Ben, that's right. Ben free zoned.
So Ben says to Melanie, standing fast in the face of doubt, especially your own, it's what a leader has to do. And then Melanie responds, sure, but it isn't what a mother should do. And then Ben says, if Mother Earth is coming back to life, then yes, it is what a mother should do. And what I saw happening in that argument is the same thing that happened in that discussion, the same thing that happened in the conversations between Alex and Melanie. And that is the scale of the stakes keeps increasing so that they both can, everybody's expressing, yeah, I'm making choices that are difficult now for the hopes of avoiding more difficult choices later. And it was when I heard that exchange, I said, okay, I'm watching a rewrite of Kill Bill 2. Right. And Melanie is Trixie and Wilford is Bill and all these strong women, right? They're all going to come together and kill Bill or kill Wilford. Right. And even if he's the one who taught him Kung Fu, they know he needs to go down. So and then all the Mother Earth references, it all made sense to me that, okay, that's the kind of show we're saying, quick, is this a Gaia myth? I mean, I love Gaia myths, right? But you got to train like Stanford said last time, the world in the world, keeping the world going, and who's got to do it but Mother Earth, and Mother Earth teaching little daughter Earth how to deal with the pain and suffering of this world they're in. So I and of course Ruth fits right into that, and she's.
Okay, can I talk about Ruth for a second, please?
Yeah.
And before we talk about Ruth, I want to go over what you just said. Yes, this was an this episode was performance driven. And the women characters really, gave it 150%. They were, forgive the pun, really driving the train. I am terrified that Snowpiercer will go the way of Game of Thrones and build these female characters up just to tear them down and end with Tristan, being the king of the Snowpiercer. Okay? Oh. That is my biggest fear, because Melanie, Ruth, Alex, Josie, they are really driving the plot, and their fates are so directly intertwined with the fate of Snowpiercer. I don't know. Sean Bean is great as Wilford, but
yep.
It's like, in case you forgot, I'm the villain. And I don't know what Leighton's doing. His dialogue was terrible, really, really clunky. Civilian oversight. That was a bit cringy for me. You know what I mean?
Well,
everyone's sort of like, what are you doing? Josie's like, what are you doing? I'm just not really sure exactly what the direction is.
You are so on target. You can, if they want to do it well, you can almost look at Kill Bill in the sense that, how did that end well? Because I thought it ended incredibly well. Well, Trixie still loved Bill, but he needed to go.
Right.
He just had no place in the world. So she took him out. He knew that she would be the one to take him out. Mm-hmm. And that's how it happened. And she took him out with a skill that he couldn't teach her because he didn't pay enough attention to the mentor she did. I mean, yeah, if they go the way I can't imagine they'll go the way Game of Thrones just because it's.
I mean, after Game of Thrones,
the world is like, avoid that at all costs.
There is a huge fear with that. Because I remember like looking at my husband, he was like, well, I'm sure you enjoyed that episode. It was a lot of like female power. And I'm like, there's like a red flag. It's like where
Filled
they
with dread.
this.
Exactly. I, for a very long time, I worked in hospitality. If any of you have ever worked hospitality, fine dining, they really drill into you that service is a performance, service is theater, it's a dance, wah, 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 wah. I think Ruth is the embodiment of that. She had some of the best lines this week. I picked two of them when she said, "Mountain engineers and mountains as big as their egos. Where will we land when the snow settles?" I mean, so dramatic. Right? Like, she gave me chills. And my favorite scene was Ruth and Melanie's goodbye at the border. I definitely teared up.
Yeah.
Both times.
When she says, "Good men and women don't seem to stay good long doing this." I mean, it was such a powerful scene. Their performances were really just, I mean, they gave me chills. Ruth is definitely my character of the week. She exists in a very gray area because as much as we say that, Ruth is very good at her job, when she was very genuine when she said, "Of course I'll look after Alex. I mean, you have my word." And I believe her. But we also have to remember this is Ruth who was gleefully amputating arms in season 1. So she does exist in this gray area. I want to say that she's a woman of great integrity, but we're not really sure exactly where her loyalties lie.
Yeah.
But I think that's what's interesting, though. It's like I don't think integrity applies to her. I think what applies to her is duty, right? And
well, duty. Yeah, go ahead, man.
Duty, but you did see sort of a turn where she was at the end of season 1. She was very much in bed with Nolan and with the Folgers, and partly by chance, but I think at the end of the day, Ruth is the determinant of her own fate.
Go ahead, Stanford.
I think she's kind of the ultimate civil servant, right? And she's bound by duty to the train. And so if the train is run by a Wilford, she's going to make the train run. If the train is run by Melanie, and I think what we're going to see is if the train is run by Leighton, right? That there's a. It's not that she's completely neutral.
But that's the thing, though. Her job is to make sure that the train runs, and that means taking care of the passengers of the train. I don't think Wilford intends for anybody to make it off that train alive.
Right.
And I do not see Ruth, blindly leading innocent people to the gallows. I just don't see it happening.
I have to say, you guys are going to get so sick of my Kill Bill 2 references by the time we're done tonight. Because it's one of my favorite movies, and there's it's the kid. It's, oh my gosh, Melanie's a mom. Because you remember how Ruth lit up when, oh my God, there's a pregnant woman. And in Kill Bill 2, there's a fantastic scene where Trixie goes on her last job and the woman comes to kill her, and they're sitting there on the other side of the door getting ready to shoot each other. And Trixie says, "I'm pregnant." And the woman leaves. In other words, there's a job you do, and then there's this deeper community of sisterhood, or dare I say Mother Earthhood, a Gaia-hood, that just like in Children of Men doesn't really matter until there really are kids in the space. And then Ruth just, oof. Okay, yeah, of course I'm going to take care. Like you said, of course I'm going to take care of your kid. That's the code. We don't talk about it, but that's it. So I thought it was a very powerful way to write the scene, and I'm with you on that. I think she's another Gaia.
Yeah, that was actually my favorite scene as well. And I think that the acting in that with both of them, the tearing up but not overly emotional, like can't really look at each other, but having a very deep moment, but they're not. Someone standing behind them wouldn't necessarily know that they were having this big healing, earth-shattering kind of moment. And I love that her immediate reaction, like her whole Ruth's face was just like, oh, how could you even question that? Like, of course, like whatever there is between me and you, like she's a child. I think you're right, Cianna, about like her duty is to making sure that the people of the train are being taken care of. And so I think whatever that definition is, though, to Stanford's point, is going to shift based on what she knows. And so when she says, of course I'll take care of Alex, at first I was like, yes. And then I was like, but wait, how do you define take care of her? Like, how do you, like, leaving her with Wilford to me seems like not taking care of her. Like, why are we not getting Alex back on Snowpiercer with these other people who can take care of her, not abuse her? So that was my only question that I left leaving the scene, was that it was such a powerful scene. And I love that whole interaction. She's not forgiving Melanie for what she did because she can't. Like, that's not going to happen, but that isn't going to stop her from doing what she thinks is right in the moment. And I'm, again, just kind of left with like, why? And it's what I've said before, like, why is it still functional? Why is Alex still on Big Alex? Like Alice?
I think she does forgive Melanie.
You think so?
I think she believes in the mission. I think Melanie has proved herself to Ruth by showing integrity, by sacrificing herself, which sacrifice is another huge theme through the show. And when she says, engineer, we'll be waiting for you right here when you get back. I mean, that's as much of
That's true. I kind of forgot that moment.
Ruth. I mean,
I think I was still crying. So I feel like there's forgiving Melanie, the person who lied to her, and then there's being okay with Melanie, the person who's about to sacrifice herself. Like, I think that Ruth is capable of kind of saying, like, these are two different aspects of the same person. And I think she's
I think
I'm not convinced. I'm not convinced that anyone's forgiving anyone. And I think that's one thing that's I think actually that's one thing that's really interesting about the characters, right? Ruth isn't forgiving Melanie. And I don't get this. I'm not convinced that Alex has really forgiven her mom so much as she has accepted her mom. And I think that's what's interesting is like what I feel like I'm being modeled.
Maybe that's a better way of looking at it, that there's an acceptance all around.
Right. And the acceptance actually allows the other feelings to flow through. Like the acceptance allows Alex to hug her mom and call her mom, right? It's like, I don't need to forgive you, but I accept you. I realize I don't even really know you, but you are my mom. And that matters. Right. That's how I read that scene.
Yeah, I think all that's coupled with a lot of surprise. I mean, I think Melanie took Ruth by surprise when she asked her to watch her kid. I mean, they had never had anything but a professional relationship coupled with some trust. And all of a sudden there's this real human, hey, will you take care of my kid? And, you know, when Ruth says, well, of course I will. I think what's interesting is just before that, Ruth embarrassed Melanie with that line you mentioned, Cianna, good men and women don't get to stay good for long doing this now, do they? She shames Melanie in that moment, and she actually looks down in a bit of shame. And then shortly thereafter comes back and said, will you watch my kid? I think Ruth was actually not, the word isn't ashamed, but just taken off guard and a little bit surprised. And the response was, well, of course I am. How would you ever imagine I'm not that kind of person? Well, because you just shamed me, man. That's why, you know. So I think they're working through all of that. And the writer's ability to capture all that in words, and then the actor's ability to put all that richness into play and bring to life. I cried both times. It was just, I'll probably watch it again. That's one of those episodes, well, I'll just watch it again because you just watch the people.
It 3 times.
Yes. It has everything. It has like all of those great moments we've talked about. It has the train and the intensity of the train, so and like what is happening. Anyway.
No,
did you watch it 3 times or 3 times?
Oh.
Okay.
Notice they said 3 times. My allegiance is lying.
these writers are also really good comedians. For me, there's some really funny lines for different reasons. I'll just say one of Alex's is, "That's some crazy shit, Mom." Right? That was in this moment of we're bonding, you're going to leave me again. And then, yeah, we're going to do this speed thing. And they're so dramatic. And the girl just says, "That's crazy shit, Mom." And then Melanie just totally appreciates it and breaks out laughing because she knows she's playing with a peer now, right? She never had that kind of relationship with Wilford. I don't know if she has that kind of relationship with her lover, but she's really, really amongst someone now who can hang with her in the sense of, being Gaia and being able to laugh at the same time. What were the other funny lines you guys heard?
When the head breachman told Bess that she was half-ass famous. That was great.
I love it.
Sometimes I'm just like, girl, why are you here? No one cares about this like detective story that they're really trained detective. Like, okay.
No, I get it. Her character did have a different timbre, different feel about her, a little more commitment. And I did enjoy your interactions with the lead brakeman. And I have to say, I still like his character. He really is a fairly honest, decent everyman, and just trying to get by. He's not, Wilford. He's not Melanie. He's not going to do all that. But for me, the line that just came out of nowhere was, "This is not the right parchment, or this is not the right stationery." God, it's so Python-esque. Just say on task and get the right. I absolutely loved it. Yeah.
Always.
Can you imagine rehearsing those scenes? I mean, she knows that she gets to lay off this zinger and she's got to play it straight all the way up into that moment. I just love good comedy. Anyone else favorite? Go ahead, Sam. Go ahead.
Instead of saying favorite character, there's the character I want to give a shout out to. Let me channel my best Denzel Washington here. My man, Tristan. I mean, we on the train, and this guy is like, it's not just that. It's not just that. But you know what? I mean, as much as I love this show, it's like, finally, another black person.
Yeah.
Bro, like, hey, I'm the other black guy. I gotta say what? And I'm just like, yeah, my man Tristan. He doesn't have the clunky lines, but he brought the clunk to the line.
There you
He
go.
definitely brought the clunk for sure.
Whereas Leighton's walking around, he's just like trying to be important. Tristan, I love him because he truly knows who he is, and he truly is who he is. Not trying to be no revolutionary, just trying to help people muster in the train.
He's very earnest.
Like
kind of like a Ruth in training.
Right.
He's not trying to run stuff. He's just trying to get from day one to day two.
There you go. Yeah.
I think Stanford and I had some really interesting conversations about how the show is dealing with race. And when Wilford was doing the announcement in the beginning of the episode on Big Alice, and he says, "What is an old white man to do with this knowledge?" It was just such a weird, for a show that doesn't deal with race, I'm just not sure what they were trying to say there. He refers to himself as an old white man, and then it's sort of a rambling announcement. It doesn't really go anywhere.
Well, to be honest, I kind of think he believes the world is over. And I think that's partially wrapped up in him believing he's kind of over. In other words, his time is done. And even though going to do whatever he can to keep that from happening. He doesn't think it's going to happen. And so I think that's why he's so cavalier with his insults. And there's no big play for him to make anymore. Right. And what he does say is, what am I going to do with all this knowledge? Well, obviously, I'm going to wield it like a sword. Right. And so.
But we're not really acknowledging race anywhere else.
Yeah.
Not explicitly like that. Right. I mean,
I'm just.
Well, maybe
awkward. It just stuck out to me, and it just seemed really awkward. I don't know. I mean, I doubt they have plans to address race in any meaningful way. I mean, this far into the show.
They don't have the cast to. I mean, they've got Leighton and a succession of white women who he sleeps with. They've introduced one black woman kind of in Big Alice, but
there's lights too. But she gets attacked. So like,
they're chopping the lights off. So
right. Well, I mean, they saw to it that she was that she wasn't a full complete woman by just chopping bits of her off. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's like
none of the women are.
Go ahead.
Are sort of they're definitely not presented as objects of desire in any way. They're very masculine in their look. We had Bess's ex-girlfriend. I haven't seen her.
You haven't seen what?
Oh,
Bess's ex-girlfriend.
The sushi maker.
The Asian American actress. I forget her character. We spoke about her at length in episode 1.
Yeah, the Asian woman who makes sushi.
In season 1,
I feel so bad now because my first response was the sushi maker, but that's.
But yeah, that's the thing. It's like that's how memorable she is. The only thing we remember about her is the thing that we.
Well, she was a character foil for the detective, right? I don't know that they fleshed her out to be.
She was really good friends with Melanie. She was like Melanie's confidant.
She really was.
Yeah.
But they replaced that with her lover to some extent, right?
Which is weird because I didn't realize they were lovers in the first season until later.
A female character is just not complete without a man. Right. The way they're dealing with race would pass for dealing with race in, I don't know, the 70s, but it's just not.
It's not believable that you would, have a society that is so divided and that race wouldn't factor in at all. And then Wilford makes this statement and he refers to himself as an old white man, and it's just sort of like.
I got the impression that was writing editorializing, right? I mean, that was the writers trying to interject a bit of that way of that discussion into the story through his character.
It really kind of trivializes it too. They're trying to be like, oh, what's an old white guy to do? Like, that's really dismissive of the whole conversation to kind of have only thrown in that way. So like Wilford's the only person who recognizes his privilege. I don't think that's the case, right? Like,
So, okay. I got the impression they were dealing with race implicitly in season 1, not explicitly, right? It wasn't an.
But season 2, but we're in season 2 now, and I feel like it's gone backwards from a poor position.
I could see, because a lot of season 1 was about class, which gets tied up a lot with the race, right? Like in different components and all that, and from that systems level. And now that the class system has been sort of thrown off, why aren't we having that conversation now then? So if it's no longer about class, well, we have to talk about what it is about, what it's been about the whole time. So it is, yeah.
But I think the class discussion just got really interesting now that we've seen a little more of Big Alice, right? So Big Alice exists at a level of scarcity. Like they have a lot of technology, but they don't have food, right? When the people who are living high off the hog are eating spam, we're not in a good we're not in a good gastronomical place. But I think what is interesting is like, okay, like look at the way Big Alice is set up. Look at what happens when Melanie asks Alex, where do you sleep, right? And we're taken to this area with bunks, and it's like everybody except for Mr. Wilford is living like a tailie on Big Alice. And so that makes me wonder what happens when the populace of Big Alice sees life on Snowpiercer. Like they're getting hints in terms of, oh, they have food. But what happens when they see that the best of them do not live as well as the least of the people in Snowpiercer? That's an interesting class moment that I hope they're trying to build up to. I could be wrong. So it'll be interesting. I mean, one thing before I forget is I actually do have a favorite quote.
There you go.
Well, it may not be the best favorite quote because you all stole my favorite quote, but
we tried, we waited,
So actually, and it's also my favorite scene. It's a scene that I think that got overlooked in part because I felt like it was a scene that would almost have been better off in a different episode because the scene didn't fit the episode, which is when they're mustering and Leighton goes to visit Josie in the medical car, right? And he's talking to Josie, and she's already had one hand removed, right? And she talks about curling up in a ball when she was in the cold to protect her one good hand because all she needs is one fist.
Yeah.
And I was like, what was interesting about that was just that brutal, utter determination. And then the follow-up of her being like, oh, you got a kid coming, right? And the thing I liked about the writing is they didn't even entertain jealousy. They didn't entertain having any kind of problem with whether or not you slept with my rival, all of that kind of stuff, which would have just turned it into like just another cringy moment of women obsessing about what men do, right? And the way it immediately focused on, well, there's a child now, and now and linking that to like colonizing and like leaving the train, and this idea of having something else to fight for. There's something about that scene that I really liked. I really appreciate it because it just went in a direction that I didn't expect them to go. I mean, we've all been talking about, oh, Josie's going to get fixed up and she's going to come back and get her revenge. And I don't think that's going to happen after seeing that scene.
Josie is the memory of Snowpiercer prior to the revolution. Her disfigurement, the fact that she's lost a limb. She is the memory of all of the horrors, all of the people who were tortured,
right?
All of the lives lost prior to the revolution. And I think that when she's on Big Alice, she will go the way of Icy Bob. And she's going to be turned into some kind of killing machine or what have you of some sort. And I think that reference to her fist is that she, I don't think it's all, looking towards the future and building a new life outside of Snowpiercer. I think she's still very much gunning for Melanie.
So
and
that's interesting.
People be appalled when she realizes that, okay, she says things haven't changed, but things really haven't changed. And I'm really confused about that. When Leighton is talking to the tailies and he says, hold the line, but don't cross the line. Why are we still, what did we fight for? I don't understand what his plan is. Whatever's happening with Big Alice, there has to be some integration of the tailies into third, second, and first class by now. Right?
Right.
Yeah. No.
Well, it's something you said off camera. They fought the revolution. They won. Don't they get housing?
You know what I mean? Is there better
Right.
food coming their way? Can I? Why? I just don't understand.
I'm kind of on board. So we know Zara's playing a game, right? Because she basically whispers into her ear, don't you ever try to take what's mine, or whatever it was.
Right.
And then the next thing you know, in this episode, she's out in the car, and Leighton, she's getting people to muster, and Leighton's going the other way, and she goes, yeah, go get Josie. Yeah. So, she's playing a game, one game here, one person here, one person there. And she didn't tell Leighton, oh, by the way, your crazy girlfriend came in here and said this to me. So since she chose to keep that to herself, it then makes me think a little differently about how she's carrying herself with him in that moment. Like, yeah, I'm gonna make my play later when they buff me up and make me, like you said.
She is rage, and I think she's going to unleash. I hope she does.
I think Josie's going to be leading the next revolution. I think that at a certain point, people are going to look at Leighton and be like, you're not a revolutionary anymore. And she's going to be leading the next revolution. I don't think and she may come gunning for Melanie, but I think that ultimately, I think Cianna, you pegged it. You totally pinned it down the donkey when you said that she is the memory of Snowpiercer, that she is the memory of all that. But I think that being the memory of that does not necessarily lead you on a revenge killing spree. I think it leads her to actually embody the revolution that Snowpiercer that the Tailies should have.
You're right, but I'm just saying that's what I would do.
Well, I do think that she'll be gunning for her, but
Working
more
out my
importantly,
one good arm, just like
Getting
that
on
whole
that
thing, I was
zoning
like,
board.
she's such a badass. Like, she's sitting there, like, anyway. But I do think you're right about her gunning for Melanie, but I think she'll be gunning for the system. And she doesn't really care who's running the system. She doesn't care anything. Like, she's gonna take that down. She's going to come after it. And we do see in, like, the little preview or whatever, her being, like, kind of hoisted onto Big Alice.
Mm-hmm.
And I think she's gonna get her strength back. And I think she, like, I don't know about you guys, but I got the vibe of, like, her being like, Leighton, we're breaking up. Like, there's no, I know you're in here trying to be like, I thought you were dead. Like, we don't have anything. Like, I'm past you now. Like, it was a rough breakup. And I don't even know if he knew he was being broken up with, but he was.
Probably not, girl. Probably not.
Yeah, I'm interested to see I guess I am really interested to see how they write Leighton, right? I mean, it's because what I enjoyed about the last episode was, now I'm in charge. What the hell am I going to do? Right. And then I'm not a revolutionary now. And I think it was even Ruth last week or this week who said, oh, revolutionaries make bad leaders. I think Cianna, who said that?
Josie said that this week. Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see how they write him is important. It's very important how they write him, because how they write him is going to be a judgment of what they think good leadership is supposed to be, unless they can find a way to keep it complex. But they run the risk.
Unless they Jon Snow him. I mean, I'm sorry.
Yeah. That's so sad. That's a verb now. But, like, absolutely, are they going to Daenerys somebody? Are they going to Jon Snow him? Is it going to be a Cersei thing? Like, what's happening?
No.
Yeah, it is a struggle keeping male characters complex. I will agree with that.
You have these women who are just, running the show. They're going through all the emotions. They are taking charge. And then you have the men of Snowpiercer, namely like Leighton and Wilford, who are just so distracted by shiny things and dangly bits. It's like ridiculous.
And women.
It doesn't make any sense. It's ridiculous. Yes, sir.
We're forgetting about my man Tristan. Because my man Tristan is going to come in and he's going to, like...
You know what I'm
he
doing?
doesn't do a bad job talking them through it. I mean, he looks scared as hell, but he gets them there.
Yeah, no, I'm going to trust that the writers are going to do, they're going to work to keep at least the main characters complex. And if they just turn them all into some of them into foils for other characters, I'll be disappointed, because that's the hard part, right? It's hard to write this stuff and not collapse into some kind of moral writing agenda. It's hard to keep it complex. And I think Deadwood was probably the best series that kept everything
Mhm.
complex from beginning to end, right? But that's so hard to do.
But it's
And
had a true understanding and a true sense of your characters.
yeah, well, and have a grip on them. Yeah.
One of the criticisms that I'm hearing about Snowpiercer over and over again is that it is, coming up short on character development. We saw a lot of that today, but I mean, I can't. We sort of have Bess, who's trained detective, but she's kind of twisting in the wind. Leighton now it's in a love triangle. I mean, it just. And Wilford's great. I mean,
I think part of the problem is that they're spending too much time. I hate to say this.
Oh no, don't go there, man. Don't even go there.
What?
I'm just teasing. I'm just pretending I know where you're going. Go ahead.
It's they're spending too much time building the world and not enough time building the characters.
Yeah.
I'm so surprised to hear you say that, but yeah.
But sometimes building the world is about building the characters.
See,
I understand how the train runs. I understand so many things, and in a weird way, that's why Tristan is so interesting to me.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because Tristan, in his uncertainty, actually makes us see how important that role of speaking is.
Yes, he does it poorly.
Like just exactly. Speaking. No, but just speaking on the loudspeaker, like that's actually really important in a train where you don't got internet,
mm-hmm.
where it matters where people are,
mm-hmm.
where knowing where to be is life or death. Like that voice matters, and I mean, I look at my man Tristan, and I just keep thinking it's a quote from a song. We crawl, we walk, we run, we fly, but somehow we get there, right? That's what's potentially interesting about a character like Tristan, who's getting this type of introduction.
Yep.
He's crawling, right? But somehow he still got them all to muster.
Which is great if we see Tristan again. I mean, that's the thing though, right? He's got to come back. We need to learn more about
exactly.
Tristan, not just the kid who was, fumbling with the intercom that one time.
I got to push back on the character development thing a little bit, because I thought the female performances we saw this week.
I said that, absolutely.
They took all of this time to build up so they could do those moments. So Leighton had his moments in episode 8 and 9 of last season, in terms of his characters change, and they're going to spend more time on how he tries to work as leader of the train. It was time to play endgame, bring these female interactions to fruition, and they just nailed it.
They did a superb job, absolutely.
You don't think so, man?
I don't feel like Leighton is a very developed character. I mean, he's a wannabe revolutionary manho.
Ooh.
Oh, see, I wouldn't say it that way. I would say that he carried himself as a leader of the tailies, who was extremely intelligent and was able to infiltrate the train because of his experience as a detective and actually affect the revolution. But
he didn't do anything more complicated than what Josie did. Josie did more of the work.
Yeah, she did.
I mean, and that's the thing. It's like. And the best he can say now that the revolution has succeeded, is civilian oversight.
Oh, that was such a bad line.
Okay, well, see, here's what I experienced. It is okay. This is a new role for him, right? This is not a space he's lived in before. He's figuring out how to play out this space. without, and trying to do it in a way, not to do it the way Melanie did it, trying not to do it the way Wilford did it. And all that is a bunch of not space that doesn't tell you what the should do space is. And so I think civilian oversight, I get it, but at the point, I love it when he and Melanie, go ahead.
Hi, Melanie is kind of holding his hand through this.
Oh yeah,
like, she's
totally.
giving him backward on Wilford. You need to get Ruth on board. You got to protect the science.
And she leaves, and she's like, "Good luck."
Like, everybody's kind of looking at Leighton like, what are we doing here? Like,
I agree. And he says, "Oh, you want me to run through it so that I know what I'm doing?" And she doesn't have to say a word because she knows it. Yeah, exactly. And he runs through it and protect the science. And she says, "Always, absolutely." And so even though that's not his expertise, now he knows that he has to rely on someone else's expertise to be a leader the way she didn't, because she was. So I think they're going to do more of them later. For me,
I'll say my second favorite scene was a negotiation scene with Wilford and Leighton and Melanie at the border. Wilford in his Trump suit with his Trump haircut and his red tie and his tacky the chair. I was like, oh my.
It was good. I will say the moment I think I laughed the hardest was when he throws the orange. And she doesn't move. She just stands there, and
and then she looks at it
that wrong. Read the room. Like, they've been trained, they have been abused, they are on a structure. They know better than to read.
Nobody's touching that orange.
It's like,
but she knows
right there. It's gonna rot. Like, it's not. Like,
all of them got the memo about Kevin.
Well, yeah, exactly. See, I think that's a moment where Leighton's detective expertise shined through, because y'all need food. This is what you need. Oh, and I'm just going to drape it here in front of you. And you know what? We will replenish your food once a week for parts. They all saw it. In other words, Leighton made sure that Wilford couldn't deny the opportunity. And Wilford knows. So Leighton, I don't know that Melanie would have done that. I'm not saying she wouldn't have, but that is something that he brought to the game. And then the fact that he's setting up a pipeline for weed, not a bad move. So
all I know is the first executive action by the black man is to start up the drug trade.
Oh no.
I'm not necessarily saying that Melanie is a better leader than Leighton. I just think that we're all tailies right now, sort of like, what's next?
Yeah.
Well, and
brought us this far, and now you've got women trouble. No one cares, bro. Like,
yeah.
I don't care about your guilt about moving into first class. Like, I don't care about all that. Like,
so what do you guys think he's gonna become an ineffectual character, or he's at a disadvantage because she's right. The science is everything at this point. If the science doesn't go, nothing else goes. So he has to express his leadership in a way she didn't have to, because she had that expertise. So what do you think they're going to do with him then?
I think everybody's at a disadvantage right now. I think you're absolutely right about Wilford. He doesn't have a hand to play right now.
No.
He's talking constantly about sacrifice. I mean, he opens up and he says, great men say balls to death. My crew respect that. He says, we all know how this ends. Everyone dies. We should all make sacrifices like Icy Bob. He's constantly talking about people sacrificing themselves. I mean, there is a very macabre sort of, tone to almost all of Wilford's dialogue. I mean, he's already showed us that he was willing to kill everyone on Snowpiercer.
And then he says,
very much used Alex as a tool to hurt Melanie. Well, now Melanie's off the train.
Brutal. Yeah.
He doesn't have to come back from Melanie, technically. So Alex's fate is sort of in the balance.
And he ends that little soliloquy with, and then one day we will take back what's mine.
What's mine?
He just, you guys are going to help me get what I want. So who's going to kill him?
Alex?
Ruth?
Ooh,
I think,
I bet on Alex. I think Alex is going to pull out Arya. And that's how it's going to go.
Josie,
yeah, I can just see Alex being the one who can get close enough, who can appeal to
Yeah.
his ego enough, who knows
Alex
him
is-
enough now to really get into a position where she can do some harm. If she's not the one who does it, she'll be the one who sets him up.
She said,
Alex would be the most poetic choice.
Yeah.
I'm thinking on Ruth. I think Alex can get Ruth there.
They're not mutually exclusive.
That's what I'm saying. Alex can get Ruth there, and Wilford will never see the knife coming because he thinks he owns Ruth. He knows he doesn't own Alex.
Why is he playing with Ruth? Because when she says permission to come aboard, he says very abruptly, he says, regretfully, Ruth. What does he say?
You'll get your turn.
Yeah.
God.
It's really, really bizarre. I don't understand what his game is with Ruth. I mean, he says, regretfully, not today, Ruth, you'll get your turn. And I won't say that he doesn't have a big play, because he obviously does. I don't know if he's coming back for Melanie. I don't think it's gonna, we had that scene with Icy Bob, and with Icy Bob, and they asked him, so Melanie, it's gonna take a month for them to come back around to the station. And he says he needs Icy Bob to stay longer and colder and stay out longer, withstand colder temperatures. And the doctors asked, do we have the full 4 weeks? And he says it's more like 2. So whatever's going to happen, it's going to happen in 2 weeks. Is he going to stop the train reverse, let Icy Bob off, and kill Melanie? I mean, I don't know what his plan is with Icy Bob, but I think it does involve Melanie. And I think it will probably spell the end of Snowpiercer. I mean, maybe his plan is to... I don't know what his plan is. But
he's definitely
whatever it is, it's going to happen in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I think we're going to see a physical standoff between Icy Bob and Melanie.
I wouldn't be surprised. It's not quite Trixie versus Bill, but it's up there, right? It's a Clash of the Titans. My second favorite character this week, I have to admit, was the train. They did some visuals with the train this time from the outside. The whole flare scene was just exciting. All the acceleration, exactly, and her jumping out, it was all believable. And they've not had the characters with the outside of the train like that. They've done some stuff, but I actually enjoyed watching the train special effects. They just didn't seem like filler. I thought that was cool.
And when they hit that first curve, I definitely felt that, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, like this!" Like, it was pretty amazing. It was pretty amazing.
I think that's the great thing about having the train too. I think we know enough about how trains work to know, like, we actually get the peril of what they're about to do. Like, like, it was just a really good moment. I do have a random question, and it's something that bothered me about the episode. Maybe you guys can help me. Why are the Breachers so dedicated to Wilford? Like, Melanie's the one that gets out with them. Melanie was the one who was going out there and putting the suit on, and so did I miss something? Why are they so Team Wilford? And if they are so Team Wilford, why aren't they on Big Alice with him? Like, why aren't people? I guess they're keeping the border closed, but did I miss something?
No, there was no explanation of, I mean, clunky maleness. I mean, their spokesperson was the big guy.
The big Russian guy was like, your democratic experiment is going to fail. I was like, okay.
Right. Just as Boris Badenoff, I don't know. I don't have an answer. It's almost as if they had to create a group inside Snowpiercer that was clearly against Snowpiercer and for Big Alice. That's it. So that did feel a bit like a plot device, as opposed to something that emerged out of an organic relationship.
Like, not just Team Wilford, but I'm gonna go cut off a woman's fingers, Team Wilford. Like, it's a level of fanaticism I just didn't understand, unless they're being framed for that whole thing. But
for me to make sense of it, I actually have to just look at some contemporary events in our world and groups that are aligning themselves with one figure and anything for you.
Oh.
as if they wanted to put that dynamic into the Snowpiercer plot. So it didn't come out.
It's against their own interests.
Yeah, no, exactly. So it didn't come across as something that it came out of what we've seen. It just seemed, oh, they want to make that relevant. They want to talk about that. And that, like you were saying, Cianna, that's kind of how Wilford's opening lines kind of felt. They want to be relevant to contemporary events. So I'm an old white man. What do? I wield the sword, right? And then these guys, then that's okay. But if they give you too much of that, they lose what makes the writing work, was just these organic relationships that you believe, right? And come out of the context, and that makes sense. Now, any other favorite? Go ahead, man.
But I feel like that's where it's falling flat, especially on race, is that they're trying to show everybody uniting around certain things. Like when we go see, it's like they're it's like, oh look, they're kind of multiracial and they're all united around muscles.
They did that. All those actors were picked specifically to be in that scene. And,
right.
Very good to look at.
It was like, drop your weight so we can listen now. It's like...
Yeah, that was like a command. Weights down. Everyone was like...
Like I said, fun to look at, but very confused.
So let me ask a question then. I mean, does that mean that when it comes to Snowpiercer and race, that we're experiencing it as one of these post-racial fantasy type rhetorics, right? That it's sort of it's a take on race that's
an attempt at colorblind casting.
An attempt at colorblind casting. Yeah. Okay, all right.
Because I think for it to be what you're describing goes back to what Stanford said, or Cianna, forget, like you would have to actually have representation. Like you have to actually have a diverse cast.
Right. And not just Black people walking in the background with no speaking roles.
Right.
I mean, the good part about this is my man Tristan has no place to go but up.
But what about the other Black dude?
So
there was a Black guy, he was a Staley, and he was wearing a white lab coat. What happened to him?
Oh, right. Well, and then there's the priest. Is he a priest?
Oh, that's right. But he has so many scenes with Beth, I just forgot all about him.
Yeah, he plays that role, right?
He did have one of my favorite lines, though, man, and it's corny as hell, but the journey never ends, right? I like that way of thinking about life. Is you get to a destination, but that destination is itself change. That destination itself is journey, and I like what he brought to the detective. I forget what her name is.
Beth.
What's her name?
Beth Till.
Yeah, where he gives her the St. Christopher medal and, oh, you care about their souls now. I mean, I don't know, that could be hokey. They're trying to do something with her character by, I don't see them trying to do a whole lot with his character. I'll be honest. He seems more like a foil for hers and her character development. But
I mean, the whole train mystery thing really worked in the first season because it was our introduction. It was a sort of a great way to give us a sweeping tour of the train and introduce us to the systems and the characters and the hierarchy of the train. And it tied nicely into, discussions about class and led into the revolution. I'm not sure why they're trying to shoehorn this mystery in and why we have a new train detective and where they're going with it. Mm-hmm. Because right now it's not really syncing up with everything else that's happening on the train.
And so it's written as a context for her character to become something. Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, when they write these long-term series, I'm sure they have this. Mm-hmm. They want to do this for a while. You have the characters like Tristan who grow into the plot and become, very important. Walking Dead did that a lot.
Story, but I mean, maybe it's because Bess is leading the investigation and not Leighton. And it just sort of feels a little like,
not
sure what we're doing.
No, well, she doesn't know what she's doing, right?
Yeah, it's not good at it. Like, it's not enjoyable to watching Leighton do detective work was really enjoyable. Watching her do it is, I'm gonna get up and go get some popcorn, and when I come back, I won't have missed anything because I already know the answer that she seems to be struggling to get. Like, and so I think that is also part of it. Where like you've got the potential to save humanity going on right now as one of your plots. So why are we dealing? Where is this? You know what I mean? So like I get it, character development over a long period of time, and it does speak to the female empowerment piece too of her sort of taking up that mantle, and now she's going to be the detective, and so we have someone else in a power position, but she needs to be able to do it well, and she's not.
Yeah, it's not clear that she should have been picked to be the trained detective. In other words, he was a detective in former life, and so it was natural for him. Not natural, he'd had a life of experience he brought to the gig. So I agree with you. I was totally watching The Wire on a train, that first season, with him just making his way all through these systems like any good detective would. And she doesn't have that life experience. Go ahead.
And I actually liked watching her come to the other side, and I liked her chemistry with Leighton.
Yeah. So
and her putting her neck out and trying to save Josie. I mean, the way she sort of was unraveling everything that was happening with Melanie. She is a great actress, and she was a great character. I was kind of expecting her to sort of be Leighton's number 2.
Yeah.
Now that Melanie was going to be exclusively in engineering,
right?
And I just don't know why they sort of. I don't know.
Well, I mean, the only thing I can think of is that she's not a really good detective, or she doesn't have a lot of experience doing it yet.
Well, she just started
exactly,
and when the world ended. So
exactly. Like, so they're showing how
on the job training.
Exactly. She's going through it, and that's why she looks so stern and tough. Leighton never had to look uptight when he was doing the job because he lived the job. She doesn't, so she gets in these crunchy moments. Hopefully they'll get her out of that. Is if they know if that's what they're doing with her character, and by episode 8 or 9, she'll be just as calm and cool and knowing where she is as Leighton was in season 1. But we'll see what they do with it. There's a line that Melody says to Leighton, and that is, "The success of this mission will be measured by data, not my life." I just love that line. Because she knows that this is incredibly high risk. She's going to go out into this ridiculously cold space, relying on 6 batteries to get her there so she can power up this station and all this. The amount of things that can go wrong are just ridiculous.
Melanie and her character has been consistent.
Yeah.
Melanie will hang out of the bottom of a train. Yeah. Melanie is out there collecting snow samples, planting bombs. She will take a life if she feels that is necessary. And now she's about to boot up a space station in negative 150 degree weather. Yeah. I mean, she's kind of a G like that.
She is. And she's training, she's passing that on to her daughter, and and given the amount of time that she has. And
yeah, I mean, her confidence in Alex, she was like, "Let's have you, engineer. We're doing this." Yeah. And she said that to her at one point. You just did what needs to be done. I mean, that's bottom line.
Glad to have you here, engineer. It's almost a poem, right? But I mean, and she says that to her daughter.
This episode.
Oh, it really
was so good.
I do kind of want to have Melanie's skills when I grow up. Mm-hmm. I don't want to be her, but I would love to be the kind of person who can just hang off a train. And I do love that Wilford tries to set her up by talking to Alex and putting Alex in these situations where he assumes that Melanie's going to pull the mom card and be like, "Not my baby," and she's like,
unflappable, let's do it.
Let's go. I think that speaks a lot to the relationship I think they had before this happened. So as much as she talks about how she wasn't there and she sent someone else to get her, in her flashbacks, it's clear that they had a relationship that was very strong and very healthy for her, and so not that it, clearly wasn't super healthy if she was leaving her behind in the middle of all this, but.
Well, she does that same thing her boyfriend did to her at the beginning of the episode when he says, when you're a leader, you got to stand strong in the face of your doubt. Guess what leaders do? She says, "No, but that's not what moms do." He goes, "Well, if Mother Earth is coming back, that's exactly what moms do." So he increases the scale of the stakes. And then when she's talking to Alex and Alex says, "You left me for you. Now it's a choice." She goes, well, I'm scared that if I don't go, there will never be any place for you to be. So she increases the stakes for Alex so that Alex can, I would argue, understand Melanie better. And I just love how those kind of scale up bookends played at the beginning and the end, when now it's Melanie scaling up for Alex, and Alex gets it. Whereas all that Wilfred has to offer Alex is these ridiculously unsophisticated attempts to control her.
Mm-hmm. With spam and scrambled eggs and a Discman.
And like when she's telling her, just put the brakes on, let mom stay. That is so, I mean, it's just so small scale. Mm-hmm. And Alex gets to learn in that space. This dude is low stakes, low scale, small scale thinker. And my mom's turning it up. And like
Melanie turns it up. I mean, do you remember in season 1 when everybody knew there was no Wilford? And they were like, well, we want to talk to him. And she was just like, I'll get him on the phone for you. She did not crack once. Like she stuck with that lie to the very end, till it was like impossible for her to get her on. Like she's staring at a room full of people who are calling bullshit on her, and she's like, I'll call him right
now. I wouldn't want to play poker with her.
Like, girl, it's over, Melanie.
Exactly. I know.
So yeah, Melanie is definitely a G.
So there it is. That about wraps it up for tonight's episode. Thanks so much for tuning in. Crew members, please tell the audience where they can find you on social media. And we'll start with Leandra.
I'm Leandra Parris. You can find me on Twitter at Parris Leandra, at Parris Leandra.
Fantastic. Cianna?
Hi, I'm Cianna Greaves. You can find me on Twitter at CICIGREAV as in Victor, E as in Sam. Yes,
fantastic. Fantastic. Stanford?
I'm Stanford Carpenter. You can find me on Facebook, on Twitter, and on Clubhouse at SW Carpenter.
Fantastic. You can find me on Twitter at @dark_loops. You can find all episodes of the Snowpiercers at the Dark Loops Productions channel on YouTube. If you'd like to leave feedback about this podcast, please leave it below on this YouTube channel or send a message to darkloopsproductions@gmail.com. We'll be sure to read it at the end of our next podcast. So there it is. From all of us to all of you, big hugs. And remember, protect
the science.
Bye-bye.